One second, I was on my couch, cursing the idiotic villainess of the novel I was reading. The next, I was staring at her face in the mirror, my face, and I was about to make her life a whole lot better. The first thing I registered was the scent of jasmine and the impossible softness of silk against my skin. The second was the face staring back at me from the ornate, gold-leafed mirror. High cheekbones, almond-shaped eyes that could cut glass, and a pout that was probably insured. It was the face of Ava Miller, the beautiful, brainless, and universally despised villainess from the novel Sterling Hearts. My heart hammered against my ribs. Just a moment ago, or what felt like a moment, I was curled up on my lumpy apartment sofa complaining to my best friend over the phone about this very character. Honestly, who has a gorgeous billionaire husband and a son that cute and throws it all away for the male lead who clearly despises her? She's an idiot, I'd fumed. And now, here I was, the idiot. I stumbled back, landing on a plush, king-size bed that felt like a cloud. My eyes darted around the room. It was less of a bedroom and more of a personal palace suite, bigger than my entire old apartment. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking what looked like a perfectly manicured golf course. This was the infamous Azora Lake Estates mansion. My hands trembled as I patted myself down, feeling for my phone. I found a sleek, unfamiliar device on the nightstand. With a shaky finger, I unlocked it. The wallpaper was a professional headshot of a man who could only be Damien Sterling, the novel's male lead. I grimaced and quickly navigated to the banking app. My breath hitched. The number of zeros in the checking account balance was just obscene. This wasn't just rich. This was by a small country rich. A black credit card, the legendary Croft Unlimited, lay beside the phone. This was it. The life Ava Miller was so desperate to escape from, an absent, workaholic husband who deposited a fortune into her account every month, and a dream house. What was there not to love? To hell with Damien Sterling, I whispered, a hysterical laugh bubbling in my throat. I kissed the cool metal of the credit card. Julian Croft, you are my new hero. A polite knock echoed through the room. Ma'am, the production team for the show is here. The voice belonged to the housekeeper, a character barely mentioned in the book. The show. Right, the Summit Mom. In the novel, Ava joined this live broadcast reality show to publicly humiliate the female lead, Seraphina Vance, who was also a contestant. It was a catastrophic failure that cemented her reputation as a villain and was the beginning of her swift downfall. "I'll be right down," I called out, my voice sounding more confident than I felt. I walked into a closet that was, no exaggeration, the size of a small boutique. Racks of designer clothes, shelves of shoes, and drawers of jewelry glittered under the recessed lighting. It was a real-life Barbie dream closet, and my broke, instant noodle-fueled former self was having a religious experience. Poverty really does limit one's imagination. I quickly chose a simple yet elegant outfit, a crisp white V-neck top and chic navy blue flared pants. I scrubbed off the heavy villain-style makeup, replacing it with a light, natural look, and pulled my dark brown, wavy hair into a high ponytail. Youthful, fresh, and completely unlike the sultry persona Ava usually projected. Downstairs, a tangle of cameras, lights, and people filled the grand foyer. The director, a slightly flushed man named Mr. Peterson, nodded at me. "Are we live?" I asked, stepping closer to the main camera with a smile. He blinked, momentarily stunned. Yes, we are." I could only imagine the live comments were already exploding. "Is that Ava Miller? She looks different. That mansion is insane. Is she even richer than Seraphina? That house has to be in Azure Lake Estates. Only old money can afford that. How did she land another billionaire after her last scandal?" The original Ava's reputation was abysmal. She had no acting talent to speak of and a nasty habit of targeting other actresses, especially the pure and kind Seraphina Vance. But the female lead's halo was powerful. Every attempt backfired, leaving Ava covered in more public hate. "Mommy?" A small voice cut through my thoughts. "Are you taking me on the show?" I looked down. There, standing hesitantly by the staircase, was Leo Croft, 4 years old, dressed in a tiny, perfect little blazer with big, dark eyes like polished obsidian that held a universe of uncertainty. He was adorable.
The original Ava detested this child, seeing him as the product of a loveless marriage and a constant reminder of the man she didn't want, Julian Croft. Despite her coldness, a child's yearning for a mother's love is a powerful thing. He clutched the railing, watching me with a fragile hope that nearly broke my heart. Oh, this was 1,000 times better than some dumb male lead. This was my son. I closed the distance between us and crouched down, my smile softening. "Of course, sweetie," I said, my voice gentle. I reached out and took his small, soft hand in mine, giving it a little squeeze. "Today, Mom is taking you to make some new friends." Leo's eyes that had been clouded with doubt suddenly lit up like a supernova. He tightened his grip on my finger, his tiny body practically vibrating with joy as he glued himself to my side. Being a mom was going to be awesome. After a quick catered breakfast and signing a mountain of release forms, we were loaded onto a bus for the filming location, the quaintly named Avonville. The bus ride was a storm of live commentary from the other mothers. Seraphina Vance, the novel's heroine, sat with her daughter Annabelle, who was a miniature of her in a pink frilly dress. Seraphina was the picture of gentle motherhood, dabbing her daughter's chin with a napkin even when there was nothing there. Next was Alara Hayes, a respected actress who had been out of the spotlight for years. She and her daughter, Chloe, were quiet, observing everyone with intelligent eyes. Then there was Zara Knight, the supermodel, whose towering height and sharp fashion sense were hilariously contrasted by her rambunctious son, Max, who was currently trying to see if he could fit his whole fist in his mouth.
And then there was me, the villainess, with my sweet, silent son, who hadn't let go of my hand since we left the mansion. The bus stopped in front of a large, picturesque farm. The director, Mr. Peterson, stood before 4 distinct houses. "Welcome to Annville, ladies," he announced. "Your home for the next week will be one of these 4 houses. In descending order of luxury, we have the manor suite, the guest cottage, the farmhouse, and the rustic barn." The mothers' faces shifted. Ilara's daughter, Chloe, tugged on her sleeve. "Mommy, what's a barn?" "It's where the horses sleep, sweetie," Ilara answered calmly. "We get to sleep with horses?" Max yelled, clapping his hands. "Awesome! Mom, can we get the barn?" Zara shot him a look that could curdle milk. "You can sleep with the horses. Don't drag me into it. Now for your first task, which will determine who gets first choice of the houses. Each mother will prepare one signature dish using the ingredients provided. Your children will then do a blind taste test. The first child to correctly identify their mother's dish wins the right to choose first." We were led to an outdoor kitchen setup. I glanced at my ingredients: beef short ribs, potatoes, rosemary, balsamic vinegar, garlic. A classic, hearty dish. I could do this. In my past life, cooking was my stress relief. The other mothers, however, looked less confident. Ilara sighed. "I'm so busy with work, I rarely have time to cook." Zara shrugged. "I have a personal chef. My diet is mostly steamed vegetables." Seraphina smiled demurely. "I know a little." As we cooked, without cameras to heighten the mystery for the audience, it became clear who was who. Ilara made a simple but decent spaghetti. Seraphina prepared a delicate pan-seared salmon that looked professional. Zara's attempt at a healthy stir-fry resulted in a pan of sadly charred vegetables. And I let muscle memory take over, searing the ribs to a perfect crust before setting them to braise in a fragrant mix of garlic, rosemary, and balsamic vinegar until they were fall-apart tender. The 4 dishes were presented on a long table. "It smells like burnt," Max announced, pointing a chubby finger at Zara's dish. The director laughed. "And why do you think that's your mom's, Max?" "Because last time Mommy tried to cook, she set the toaster on fire," he said proudly. Everyone chuckled. Zara's cheeks flushed pink. "Congratulations, Max. You are correct. Which house would you like?" Max looked from the manor to the sad-looking barn. "He said the farmhouse, so Chloe and Annabelle can have the better houses, and so Mommy doesn't have to sleep with the horses." My heart melted a little. What a good kid. Next, it was Leo's turn. He shyly approached the table, his eyes scanning the dishes. He picked up a fork and took a tiny bite of my braised short rib. He chewed slowly, his little brow furrowed in concentration. Then his eyes widened and he looked straight at me. "This one," he said, his voice small but certain. "I think this one is from my mommy." The director leaned in. "And what makes you so sure, Leo?" His face was filled with a bright, shining pride. "Because my mommy is the best." The live comments must have been going insane. The director, seeing the viewer count skyrocket, beamed. "Congratulations, Leo. You are absolutely right. You get first choice. Which house will it be?" Leo didn't hesitate. He pointed a resolute finger at the most luxurious option, the Manor Suite. The director looked intrigued. "And why that one?" Leo puffed out his chest. "Because Daddy says Mommy should only have the best, and Leo doesn't want Mommy to be sad." I had to physically restrain myself from sweeping him up into a bone-crushing hug. I glanced at Seraphina, who was watching us with a tight, unreadable smile. The final result, Leo and I got the Manor Suite, Seraphina and Annabelle took the guest cottage, Zara and Max were in the farmhouse, and Ilara and Chloe ended up in the rustic barn, which, to Chloe's delight, did have a very friendly pony in the adjoining stall. That evening, after a warm bath in a clawfoot tub, I was lying on a ridiculously comfortable bed when my phone buzzed with a video call. The contact name made my stomach do a nervous flip. Julian Croft. Right. In the novel, the only condition Julian gave for allowing Ava on the show was a mandatory video call every night, supposedly to make sure she wasn't mistreating their son. I took a deep breath. Showtime.
I saw Leo's head pop up from his own bed. I had an idea. I tossed the phone to him. "It's your dad, sweetie. You answer it. Mommy's just going to the restroom." I beat a hasty retreat before he could protest. From the bathroom, I could hear their conversation. Julian's voice was a low, smooth baritone that rumbled even through the phone's tiny speaker. It was unfairly attractive. "Where's your mother?" he asked. I could almost picture him seeing my panicked exit from the room, as cameras were installed even in our private quarters for the live feed. "Mummy went to the bathroom," Leo chirped. "Do you want me to get her?" A soft chuckle from Julian. "No, that's all right. Did you have fun today?" "Lots of fun. Mommy even won the best house for us." I stayed hidden for as long as I could, but eventually I heard Leo's excited voice calling me. "Mommy, Daddy wants to talk to you." There was no escaping it. I took a deep breath and walked back into the room, taking the phone from Leo's outstretched hand. The face on the screen stopped my heart. The novel had described Julian Croft as handsome, but that was a criminal understatement. He had sharp, intelligent features, a strong jaw, and intense dark eyes that were currently looking right at me through the screen. He was leaning back in a leather chair, a pen held loosely between his long fingers, the background a sleek, modern office overlooking a city at night. A faint smile played on his lips. I was toast. A soft cough came from the phone, pulling me from my stupor. My cheeks flushed. "Hi," I managed, looking away from the screen. "Are you busy at work?" I immediately regretted it. The original Ava treated him with cold indifference. She would never ask something so considerate. But he didn't seem to notice. Was all he said. "Can't you use more than one word?" As if reading my mind, he asked, "Have you eaten?" 4 words. Progress. Yes, we ate." I felt a tug on my pajama sleeve. Leo was looking up at me with a pout. "Mommy, why are you ignoring me? Is Daddy that handsome you can't look away?" I could feel my face burning. The phone in my hand suddenly felt like a hot coal. From the other end of the line, Julian Croft's low, amused laughter echoed, rich and warm. "Leo," he said, his voice laced with a playful authority. "That's my wife you're talking to." The next morning, the sun streamed into our suite, and for a blissful hour, I felt a sense of peace. I showed Leo how to make pancakes, letting him stir the batter and make a complete mess of the pristine kitchen. He giggled, smearing flour on my nose, and for the first time, the laugh that came out of me felt completely my own. The live feed captured it all, and for a moment, I forgot I was a character in a drama. The peace was shattered when the director, Mr. Peterson, burst in, his face pale and his hands shaking as he held out his phone. "Ava, you need to see this." There it was, a high-definition video, clearly filmed years ago, splashed across every major gossip site. It showed a younger, harsher-looking Ava cornering Seraphina in a cafe. She was throwing a drink, her voice sharp and cruel. "Damien is mine. You'll never have him. Stay away or you'll regret it." The hashtags were brutal. Hashtag Ava the abuser. Hashtag cancel the summit mom. Hashtag justice for Seraphina. The show's official social media pages were being flooded with hate. Seraphina had played her trump card. A cold calm settled over me. I wasn't the original Ava, but this was my problem now. My son Leo, sensing the tension, hid behind my legs, his pancake forgotten. Just as Mr. Peterson started stammering about breach of contract, my phone rang. It was Julian. I answered, my heart pounding. "Come outside," was all he said, his voice a steady, unshakable anchor in the storm. "I'm here." I looked at the director. "I need to go." Mr. Peterson, who I expected to be furious, simply nodded, a look of awe and fear on his face. "Of course, Mrs. Croft. We'll announce a temporary pause in filming for your team." I took Leo's hand and walked out of the manor suite. Parked on the gravel path looking completely out of place against the rustic farm backdrop was a gleaming, black Rolls-Royce. A man in a sharp suit, Mr. Harrison, stood by the rear door, which he opened for us with a respectful nod. "Mrs. Croft, young Master Leo." We slid onto the plush leather seats. Julian was inside, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, looking out the window. He didn't look angry, just focused. The car pulled away in an unnerving silence. I finally broke it, my voice barely a whisper. He turned to look at me, his dark eyes intense. "I'll handle it," he said, cutting me off gently but firmly. "You don't need to worry."
He explained that we weren't being pulled from the show. We were going to his parents' house for a previously scheduled family dinner. My stomach twisted into a new kind of knot. I had to face the in-laws. The Croft family estate was everything you'd imagine, an old-world stone mansion surrounded by acres of ancient trees and sprawling gardens. A woman who was so perfectly preserved she looked more like Julian's older sister stood at the door. Eleanor Croft. "Julian," she said, her smile warm for her son but cooling significantly when her eyes landed on me. She bent down to fuss over Leo. "Leo, darling, did that show tire you out? Not everyone is suited for the spotlight." The jab was subtle but clear. I braced myself. Inside, Julian's father, Richard Croft, a formidable man with a stern face, put down his newspaper. "That mess online, what is it?" he said, his voice a low rumble. "A ghost from the past," Julian replied calmly, pulling out a chair for me at the dining table. "It's being taken care of." Richard grunted. "See that it is. No one gets to drag the Croft name through the mud." His words weren't an accusation, they were a command, a closing of ranks. During dinner, Leo, bless his heart, worked his magic on his grandmother, telling her all about the cooking challenge. Eleanor smiled, but then looked at me. "I suppose you had the caterers make your dish." Ava was never one for domestic tasks. Before I could respond, I stood up. "Excuse me," I said, and walked straight into the kitchen. The staff watched in stunned silence as I found the ingredients and began to work. An hour later, I brought out a platter of the same braised short ribs I'd made on the show. The silence at the table was profound. I had said nothing, but I had answered everything. For the rest of the meal, the atmosphere was warmer. I felt a strange sense of belonging, of being protected. That night, we were given a guest suite. After I put Leo to bed, I took a long shower, trying to wash away the day's stress. I emerged from the bathroom in a borrowed silk robe, toweling my hair dry. Julian was standing by the window, but he turned as I came out. He walked over, took the towel from my hand, and gently began to dry my hair himself. His movements were slow and careful, his knuckles occasionally brushing against the nape of my neck, sending electric shocks through my system. The gesture was so unexpectedly tender, so intimate, it left me speechless. When he finished, he didn't step away. He gently cupped my face, his thumb stroking my cheek. The air grew thick, charged with unspoken questions. I was trapped in his gaze, a deep, searching look that seemed to see right through me. "You're not her," he whispered, his voice low and raspy. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. "Are you?" I stared at the man holding my face in his hands, my heart hammering. I was exposed. The game was up. "No," I whispered, my voice cracking. A heavy silence filled the suite. I braced for the anger, the disgust, the demand for a divorce. Instead, an emotion I never would have predicted washed over Julian's features. Relief. He let out a long, shaky breath as if he had been holding it for years. "I know," he said, his voice thick and low. "I've known since the first day when you truly saw Leo. She was never capable of that." He closed his eyes for a moment. "Then why?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Why are you helping me? Why not just get rid of me?" Julian's eyes opened, and the intensity in them stole my breath. Because for the first time in years, my son is happy. And for the first time in years, there is light in this house. He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I'll make a deal. Continue this role, be Leo's mother, be my wife in name. In return, I will give you anything you want, and I will protect you from whatever comes." It was an out, a lifeline. I nodded, unable to speak. The next morning, we returned to Anvil. A miracle had occurred. The online scandal was gone. Every negative article, every hateful video and hashtag had been scrubbed from the internet. In their place were stories about a coordinated smear campaign and vague threats of legal action from the Croft Industries legal team. Seraphina looked like she had swallowed a wasp. Her perfect plan had crumbled to dust. She didn't have time to brood, however. Director Peterson, who now treated me with an almost reverential respect, gathered us for a surprise. "Ladies," he beamed, "to spice things up, we've decided to have the fathers join us for the week." A parade of husbands began to walk out. Zara's husband, Maxwell Blackwood, was a charming venture capitalist. Alara's husband, Adrian Hayes, was a quiet and artistic film director. And then, Julian appeared, looking effortlessly powerful even in a cashmere sweater and jeans. Leo launched himself into his arms. He kissed Leo's head and then smiled at me, a private smile that made my heart flutter. Finally, the man from the novel, Damian Sterling, arrived. He was polished, classically handsome, and radiated an air of self-importance. He gave Seraphina a perfunctory kiss before his eyes scanned the group and landed on me. He froze. I could see the confusion in his eyes. He was looking at the woman who had supposedly obsessed over him, the woman he had cruelly rejected, and she wasn't even sparing him a glance. She was laughing with her husband and son. The look in his eyes, a mixture of disbelief and a wounded ego, was almost satisfying. Seraphina, sensing her control slipping, made her move. She linked her arm through Damian's possessively. "Ava," she said, her voice sickly sweet, "this is my husband. Please don't stare." The assembled families and crew went quiet. I slowly turned, keeping my face a perfect blank. I looked at the space just over Damian's shoulder. "Stare?" I asked, nonchalantly. "Oh, no, I was just debating the most polite way to tell your husband his fly is down." A stunned silence fell, followed by a stifled choke of laughter from Zara. A furious blush crept up Damian Sterling's neck as he hastily turned away to fix himself. I turned back to Julian, who was hiding a smirk behind a sip of water. The new task was an apple harvest. The families had to pick crates of apples from an orchard and sell them in the nearby town. The team that earned the most money would win. The only transportation, a rickety old farm pickup truck belonging to the orchard's owner, Old Man Fitzwilliam. Seraphina, trying to regain the upper hand, approached the old farmer. "Sir, might we rent your truck?" Mr. Fitzwilliam squinted at her, then looked at me and broke into a toothless grin. "Sorry, missy. I'm saving it for my new favorite granddaughter," he said, winking at me. Publicly rebuffed, Seraphina retreated, her face a mask of fury. I walked up, thanked Mr. Fitzwilliam, and confidently climbed into the driver's seat of the old truck. I turned the key, and the engine rumbled to life with a practiced touch. "Get in," I said, to Julian. He looked at me with a spark of genuine admiration in his eyes. He slid into the passenger seat while the other families piled into the truck bed. In town, while the other teams set up small roadside stands, I drove straight to the main grocery store. Using business acumen from my past life, I negotiated a bulk sale with the manager for half our apples. Then I drove to a local restaurant famous for its apple pie and sold the rest to their pastry chef. We were done in under an hour, with over $400 in our pocket. When we returned to the set, the other teams hadn't even come back yet. I found a few crew members playing cards and sat down with them, completely at ease.
When the other families finally trudged back, tired and having earned a fraction of our total, they found me laughing as I laid down 4 of a kind and raked in a pile of potato chips from the director. I was no longer the villainess. I was winning my own game. That evening, a fragile peace settled over the farm. The competitive energy had faded, replaced by the quiet hum of families enjoying a final campfire. I found a swing set near the edge of the woods, the gentle motion a soothing balm. "You've certainly been a surprise, Ava." I didn't have to look to know it was Damian Sterling. He stood a few feet away, trying for a charming, intimate tone. "I'll admit, I misjudged you. This new version? It's much more interesting." "There is no new version, Damian. There is only the version you never bothered to know." "Perhaps," he conceded, taking a step closer. "Maybe we could get to know each other now." I stopped swinging and finally looked at him, my expression pure ice. "You are married to a woman who, for all her faults, is the mother of your child. I am married to a man I love. This conversation is over." I walked away without a backward glance. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. It was him. "I know you still feel something for me. I can't marry you, but I can give you a life of luxury, a beautiful house. Anything you want, just be mine on the side." It was so pathetic, so transactional, I almost laughed. I typed back a single, blistering reply. My husband already gave me the world. What could a man who can't even keep his fly zipped possibly offer me? Then I blocked his number and deleted the thread. Julian found me on the porch of our suite, staring up at the star-dusted sky. He didn't speak, just draped a warm blanket over my shoulders and stood beside me, a silent, solid presence. It was in that quiet moment of shared understanding that he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "I look at this every night," he said softly. He showed me the screen. It was a picture of him and a younger me. We were on a beach, laughing, his arms wrapped around me, and I was holding a small, barely noticeable baby bump. We looked incandescently happy. I didn't remember it. I didn't remember that smile on my face. "I miss her," he whispered, his voice thick with the pain so profound it physically hurt me to hear. "I miss my Ava." His words were the key. The picture was the lock. Suddenly, the universe fractured. It wasn't a gentle recollection. It was a tidal wave. 4 years of memories crashed into me with brutal force. Laughing with Julian in our college apartment, the dizzying joy of seeing a positive pregnancy test, the terror of a cold, alien presence slipping into my mind, a voice that called itself a system user on a mission. The horrifying sensation of being shoved into a dark, silent corner of my own consciousness, forced to watch as this imposter wore my face, hurt my husband, and despised my unborn child. Then nothingness, a gray, muted existence as a lonely office worker in another world, a life that was never mine. The imposter had failed her mission to win Damian. Her soul had been ejected, and I was finally, truly home. Tears streamed down my face, hot and furious. I looked up at Julian, seeing him clearly for the first time. "You knew," I choked out, the words ripped from my soul. "You knew it wasn't me." He pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly that I could feel the tremors running through his body. "Yes," he confessed, burying his face in my hair. His own voice was breaking. "She told me what she was, a system. I thought I was going insane. She tried to get rid of the baby. She tried to leave me for him. I had to fight every day just to keep our family from shattering, all while the woman I loved was gone. I was so scared," I sobbed into his chest. "I missed everything. I missed his first steps. I missed his first word." "But you're here now, Ava," he murmured, kissing the top of my head. "You're finally home." The final day of the Summit Mom was a live broadcast of a closing ceremony. We were all dressed in evening wear. Seraphina looked hollowed out. News had circulated that Damian had left her, not for me, but because his real mistress, the mother of his other secret child, had finally exposed him publicly. Seraphina's perfect world had imploded. When it was my turn to speak, I walked to the podium, not as a villainess or an imposter, but as myself. "A person's life is their own story," I began, my voice clear and steady as I looked into the camera. For a long time, I felt like I was just a supporting character in someone else's drama. I made mistakes, or rather, mistakes were made by a version of me that I no longer recognize. I'm here to say that I'm profoundly sorry for the hurt that was caused, but I'm also here to reclaim my own story. My eyes found Julian in the front row, holding a sleeping Leo in his arms. I am a wife. I am a mother. I am a woman who was lost and has finally found her way back. My future is not about chasing ghosts or winning games. It's about building a life with the people who stood by me, even when I wasn't myself. It's about them. I smiled, tears welling in my eyes. Thank you for watching. My name is Ava Croft, and this is my second act. I walked off the stage, away from the applause and the cameras, and straight into the arms of my family. Julian kissed me. A real kiss, full of 4 years of pain and a future of promise. We walked out of the studio and into the quiet night, leaving the bright lights of the show behind for good. My story wasn't over. It was just beginning.